peace, audience, to our national audience and our international audience, for Yah, righteousness, Jerusalem, and the Holy Seed. This is part 4 of dispelling, of the Christian myth. This is part 4. I don't want to say the final part because we always are doing our best to reveal and pull the covers off these religions. But we're going to pick up basically from where we left off. We've been getting a lot of calls from around the country about these apocryphal books. Okay, so we're going to touch on that today and go into it pretty extensive, and hopefully we'll be able to get all this in to dispel these apocryphal books for what they are: lies and deceptions, creations of the descendants of Esau. Now, again, in Daniel chapter 11 verse 14, and in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south. Also the robbers of thy people shall exalt themselves to establish division, but they shall fall. Okay, now that the robbers there in 11:14 Daniel, this was during the time of the Greek kingdom. Okay, and this is during and after the death of Alexander the Great and his murder by the descendants of Esau, some of them who were into becoming illuminated to the book, and they were aligned with Ptolemy, who was one of the generals of Alexander, who evidently was hating on Alexander. He wanted to be Alexander. And Esau, having the wisdom and understanding that Yah had given him, was able to see that. Remember, Esau, the descendants of Esau, they are the hunters. Okay, the hunter. Isn't that his prophecy over in Genesis chapter 27? So now again, get your recording devices. I hope you got them going, because you're going to want to have to go back over this, because we're going to do our best to get all of this in. It's a lot today. All right? And we're going to do our best to expose these apocryphal books and who wrote them and the time that they came in. And this is during the 3rd century BCE, okay? Under the reign of, it starts under the reign of Ptolemy Philadelphus, the son of Ptolemy Soter. And it starts around 285 BCE, coming on down through the BCEs, okay? And this is when the first translation of the Book of Remembrance, the so-called Old Testament, began. It was the first book ever on earth to be translated from one language to another, and it was translated from the Hebrew Israelite Aramaic into the Greek language. And this was done by the descendants of Esau, not by the descendants of Israel. Okay, we must understand, when you go back into the book of Malachi, the last prophet of Yah till today, Malachi was contemporary with Nehemiah when Nehemiah returned. Okay, if you go into chapter 13 of the book of Nehemiah, Nehemiah says that in the 32nd year, he had to return to Artaxerxes. Because if you go into the first chapter of Nehemiah, Nehemiah makes the statement that he had to set Artaxerxes a time. Okay? Because Artaxerxes asked him, in other words, how long are you going to be gone? Now we must understand we're dealing with a transliteration, and the descendants of Esau who translated this book, they do their best to the extent that Yah allowed them, because they couldn't do anything that Yah did not allow, to disrupt the time period, okay? The chronology of this book, because he knows how important time is, all right? So again, in the 32nd year of Artaxerxes, and he came on the throne in 465 BCE, that'll make it 433 BCE when Nehemiah had to return to Artaxerxes. We don't know exactly how long he was in Persia, okay? But he came back. He got cut loose by Artaxerxes the last time before Artaxerxes died. We know he died in 422 BCE, so he was cut loose before that, okay? And it was when he returned, as you see in chapter 13, Nehemiah, that he noted certain conditions that had come about from his absence from Jerusalem. And the descendants of Israel who were still in the land, okay, the remnants of that the descendants of that remnant that returned with Zerubbabel, Yahushua, that 42,360, as it tells you in Ezra chapter 2, verse 64. They had gone away from Yah, okay? Majority of them, okay? They had gone off into idolatry. They were marrying strange wives who were idolatrous. They were having children by these women who were raised idolatrous, who were raised where they couldn't even speak the Hebrew Israelite language. Nehemiah makes note of this. He also makes note that the Lewites had fled everyone to his field, and he understood, because the Lewites had returned to their field, he understood that the people had stopped bringing their tithes and offerings to Yah and to the temple of Yah, that second temple that had been built, that was standing in Jerusalem at that time. Now, Nehemiah came back in 444 BCE. Okay, so again, we're talking now after 433 BCE. At some point he returned. When he saw these children who could not speak in the Hebrew Israelite language, you figure what, maybe 5 years, they were about 5 years old, at least 4 or 5. You understand, when a child is talking, okay, a year to be born, another, what, 3, 4 years, 5 years. So sometime around there, maybe 5 years, 6 years, he returned. So we're down now around what, 427 BCE, okay, and this is when he came back and he saw these things had come about, and the temple was left by the Lewites, okay, because the people hadn't brought their tithes. The Lewites had just left the house of Yah and left their blessings, okay, because whether the people are bringing tithes or not, whether they're bringing offerings or not like they're supposed to, those who represent Yah are still supposed to do their job in regards to Yah, because that's how you get your blessings. You don't leave Yah for any reason whatsoever, okay? So now when he makes note of this, also you can go into the first chapter of Malachi and see that Malachi, Yah coming through Malachi, who was the last prophet of Yah till today, okay? And this is, like I said, around 427, 426 BCE. Malachi was raised up, and Yah came through Malachi to the people. And if you go to chapter 1 Malachi, you can see that Yah is basically saying the same thing that Nehemiah is saying, right? He's saying the same thing, because Nehemiah was the governor, as who's mentioned in chapter 1 Malachi, all right? When Yah said, the people are bringing the blind and the lame and the sick upon mine altar. He says, you understand, they're snuffing at my offerings. He said, I am a great king, and my name is dreadful amongst the heathen. He said, go offer these offerings now to thy governor and see if he will accept thy person. Well, the governor was Nehemiah at that time. They were contemporary at that time after Nehemiah's return. Okay? So, again, we're in the latter part of the 5th century BCE, around 427, 426, right in that area. Okay? Now, you see from reading Malachi, those 4 chapters, that Yah was basically signing off. When you get to chapter 3, okay, we put it in the flyer that we put out, and when you get to chapter 3, you will see that Yah says that the people, the remnant of our forefathers who were in the land, who was still about Yah, because it wasn't many, they were talking one to another, and they said to them, to one to another, what's going to happen? The people, the light is going out, the light of Yah, okay? Like Yah said, you understand, he was going to create a famine in the land, not of bread, but of hearing his words, okay? So the light was going out. And they spoke one to another, saying, what's going to happen? Because they said, when we die, the children are gone. You understand, they're in idolatry. They're not about Yah. Most of the people are not about Yah today. So now what's going to happen? And Yah heard it. That's what it says in chapter 3 Malachi. And he hearkened. And he put the spirit in our forefathers who were still about him at the time to put together the prophetic books, okay, in a compilation. And it was called the Book of Remembrance. You will see that in Malachi chapter 3.